Hi, I'm Jamie, your host for the Not Going to Uni podcast, where we talk all things emerging talent and alternative routes to university. In today's episode, we're chatting with Mercy, a Data Analyst Apprentice from Vodafone. Hi Mercy, welcome to the podcast. How are you?
Good, thank you, Jamie. How are you?
Yeah, really good, thank you. Great to have you on today. Just for our audience, introduce yourself.
Yeah, sure. My name is Mercy. I am a level 6 data analytics degree apprentice. That's such a mouthful to say. Sorry. I'm a degree apprentice. I'm in my first year. I've actually just finished my first year, going into second year, and I work at Vodafone.
Amazing. Great. Let's dive straight into your journey then. Do you want to just give us a little bit of an introduction around what got you into Vodafone, particularly with data analytics as well? Just give our audience a bit of an overview of your journey.
Yeah. So my journey is a little bit different. I left college in 2015. So I've been out of school for a little bit. I've been doing loads of different things. I've got a background in customer service, so I've done a lot of front of house in different industries. Hospitality, I worked in a hotel. I've worked in the NHS as a receptionist and administrator. I've also worked in corporate as a corporate receptionist. So I've got a lot of experience being in front of people, speaking to people. It's something that I actually really enjoy doing. So that's how I've sort of managed to be busy for the last few years. As well as that, I'm heavily involved in the church and ministry. I am a youth leader, so a lot of my time has been spent, working with young people, helping them transition from Sunday school into like adult church,
Yeah.
as well as that. So that's been a lot of my outside of work experience. But I remember being 18 and actually I've always wanted to be in tech. I did actually get into the University of Kent to do business and IT, and I deferred my place, and life kind of happened and just set me on a different journey. And at the beginning of 2022, I discovered apprenticeships. They were not a thing when I was in school. So it was really interesting to see an amazing opportunity to study but work at the same time. And I just sort of dived into the world of apprenticeships and just started applying like crazy. I knew I wanted to get back into tech, but I didn't want to do a boot camp. So I found degree apprenticeships and I just started applying for different roles. Data analytics is not like my dream job. It's not the one thing that I kind of went forward for. I think this was the only data role I actually applied for. I applied for project management, human resource, loads of different things. And when Vodafone reached out and I, went through all the stages and got to the assessment center, I was I was pleasantly surprised because I didn't actually think I thought at first, because I'm not a school leaver. I kind of had a bit of issues with the fact that I was a little bit older. I was 25 when I applied, so I was like, oh my god, I'm gonna be so old and this, that, and the other. But I remember reading on the Vodafone website at the time, the statistics that 25% is actually over 25.
Wow. Okay.
So happy. And when I got to, through the assessment center, I was like, yeah, I'm gonna work here. I'm gonna work here. The culture is great. So that's kind of how I got into this role.
Amazing. So I guess why? I mean, you mentioned a little bit there around kind of culture of Vodafone, why they're a great fit for you. But is there anything else that drew you to Vodafone and their program specifically?
I think mainly it was the culture. The we have what we call the spirit of Vodafone, and it's there's four spirits. Doing it together. I'm gonna forget some of them, but one of them was inclusion for all and diversity. I love the diversity and inclusion element of Vodafone really drew me in, and really honestly speaking, it felt like I was, from the moment I started researching Vodafone, I felt like I can fit here. I felt like I can belong in Vodafone. There was a place for me in Vodafone. And I don't know, it just drew me in a lot more than some of the other companies I actually applied for. But yeah, it was the diversity and inclusion that caught me a lot. They're very heavy on that. And it's seen all throughout, the company. So yeah, that's what.
Was that something you kind of felt was missing from maybe your previous roles or organisations that you were in, or?
Not per se missing. I think it was just, I think the fact that it was emphasized quite a lot more, that I was kind of like, oh, that's a bit interesting. I mean, there's diversity in the hospitality industry and in the NHS. That's very big, diversity and inclusion. However, it was the fact that it was the first thing that caught my eye through the program already. That's something that would come up in conversations. It would just sort of find its way in our conversation. So it was really lovely to see and to just take in.
That's really nice. So, I guess diving into more about your role specifically, and maybe talk to us a little bit more about what does a typical day in the life look like for Mercy.
I am still on the data analytics stream and pathway. However, my role is now a little bit more business analyst slash business change slash project management. It's a lot of different things. So right now, my team is working to migrate data from one place, one software or one program to another. So my day would consist of, we haven't started our daily stand-ups yet because the developers aren't here and our scrum master's just about to join our team. It's amazing to see like a project go from beginning to end. This is like a 1-year project, so every day is different, but most of my day is spent learning about agile and using Jira to figure out how to add a feature and stuff like that. But yeah, every day is a bit different. Mostly a lot of meetings and planning and creating the features for the program that we're switching to. So it's a lot of meetings, which I actually quite enjoy. I'm learning a lot. I'm absorbing a lot. In my previous role, it was a lot more technical, and I realized that I don't really like coding.
Yeah.
It was like, no, I can't do this. So I did that for about 6, 7, 8 months, and I realized that I missed that human interaction with like, seeing people and just speaking to people on like a daily basis. And um, I appreciate, the coding skill. However, I wanted something that was a less technical, and this role was just perfect. So more meetings, more speaking to stakeholders and understanding the business requirements, for this certain project, and I guess the future projects that I'll work on as well.
And how were kind of Vodafone in dealing with that kind of rotation and switch to something that you kind of held your hands up and went, this isn't for me? Because a lot of people would kind of sit in silence and kind of suffer in a way, wouldn't they? Because they feel that I've been employed for this job. If I'm not doing this, then I'm not right. But so I'm guessing Vodafone were really great about that.
Really, really were. So with our apprenticeship program, we actually have applications, and from the beginning is the team that you'll be in for the next 3 years or the duration of your program. However, when you raise to the apprenticeship program lead within Vodafone that you're not particularly happy with a certain team or the role isn't a perfect fit for you, they are super, super, super helpful in looking for something that will make you happy. Because ultimately, they want you to enjoy your the duration of your program. They don't want you to be stuck in a place where you're not looking forward to working, and getting out of bed is really difficult. So they're very helpful in locating a job. It's not always easy. It's not always immediate. I waited for quite a bit of time. Thankfully, I went on holiday for like 3 weeks, which was absolutely great to get away in the time that was all being sorted out. But they're super helpful, and they just really want you to be happy and learn and enjoy the process. So yeah, they're super helpful.
And what kind of advice would you give to either any young listeners listening that are looking to get into their first apprenticeship, but also maybe someone who's in a career and holding their hands up kind of day to day going, this isn't for me? Like, what advice would you kind of give to them to break into something that is truly meant for them?
I think first of all, start having those conversations, and put it out there rather than just have it in your head, because it's one thing to wake up in the morning and you're dreading going to work because you don't want to do this job. But when you start to voice it out, and I think this is really helpful for me. Speaking things out helps me to break it down and see what actually is the problem, get to the root of the issue. Is it that your manager is not great? I mean, that's not really a great reason to leave a job. But if that's the case, get
It's part of our day-to-day lives, right? Like we're always interacting with our manager, so it's important, right?
exactly, and you want to be able to have a place to be in a place where you're growing and you're the person that is helping you through this journey is for you and on your side. So I would say start having the conversations, and then if you do know what you're more happy doing, also upskill, and in your free time look into that. What are the roles and responsibilities of that job? What is it that you already have that you can transfer into that role if the time comes for you to switch roles? But ultimately, speak up, voice it out. Don't keep it inside and don't die in silence. That's like the worst thing ever. I feel like growing up in I think this is everywhere, but in our culture, it's very much stick it through, you know, you just got to push through, it will get better, or you know, you're not always going to enjoy your job. But we live in a day, or we live in an age where it's really important for you to wake up in the morning and be happy to go to work. I think that's such a huge thing, and speaking up is the first step.
And that's what I've quite enjoyed seeing around our other apprentices and our ambassadors and Gen Z as a whole is that I think we are beginning to speak up more when we don't enjoy something, and I think we're beginning to learn more about ourselves than we ever did because we're willing to accept the fact that maybe something isn't quite right for us, or a certain opportunity isn't something that we want to go after, and or a skill that's not really aligning with personal values. And I think it's been really great to see that kind of develop over the past couple of years for sure. um, in terms of the tech industry then, so obviously Vodafone being a massive corporate player in that, but also maybe people applying for whether that be smaller organizations or kind of different areas of tech. Is there any kind of advice that you'd give to them, having seen it from obviously someone like Vodafone being a big market player? Would there be any advice that you'd give to people either trying to get into a similar sized company like Vodafone, or maybe some of the smaller companies that might be operating in the space as well?
Yeah, for sure. I think for such a program, especially if you're like it's an early careers program, it's that eagerness to learn and to develop. Be inquisitive, ask loads of questions, do your research. One thing I always say is research the company that you're going into. If you know the values, if you know how the company works, that's always a benefit. But ultimately, in I think when you're entering an early careers program, the skill is they're not expecting you to know everything. However, the desire and the eagerness to learn is the one thing that will set you apart from somebody who maybe has the experience already, because they want to take you on this journey for you to develop and be ready to enter the world of work after the program. So I think the willingness to learn and the desire to just be better and grow, and always it's always tech is always changing, always developing. There's always another version of something. There's always another version, an updated version of this, that, and the other. So it's always being like it's almost like it keeps you on your toes because you're always wanting to learn. So that eagerness and desire to learn, even if you don't have the skills right now, you can learn. I went into Vodafone having no experience in the tech industry or the telecommunications industry. I didn't know how to use SQL. I barely knew how to use Power BI. The last time I'd used SQL, Excel rather, was a while ago, and it wasn't to the degree of my job. So I had the basic knowledge of a computer, but my willingness to learn made it easier and made me stand out, I want to say. So be willing to learn and be inquisitive. Just always stay on top of the game kind of thing. Things are always changing and you just want to be on top of it.
Going kind of back to the culture of Vodafone, and obviously I'm assuming you kind of joined as a cohort with other people. How did that kind of influence you in terms of coming to work, socializing with others, and I guess are you a hybrid model based at Vodafone?
I'm a hybrid model. I think all of us are basically hybrid, unless you're like in sales or retail. Joining as a cohort was actually really great. So we had a 3-day induction, and that kind of just helped ease us into seeing people in the office, coming into the office. Even though we may not be in the office 3 days a week or 2 days a week, that really helped to just sort of begin that process of embedding ourselves into the company. So you wake up in the morning, you're going in for induction, but you're not the only people in the building. You're going to see your line manager, you're going to see other people that are coming in to work, and just being in that environment of, okay, I'm at work, it was really great. And in terms of socializing, the youth program, or the youth within Vodafone, we have a youth committee that we basically, our role is to make sure that the youth are integrated into Vodafone and make sure that they are having an enjoyable experience. So we plan socials, we plan youth office weeks. We just had recently had our youth office week, which is basically different. We run different programs, or different speakers come in, and the youth, we encourage the youth to come into the office, and you get to see other youth as well. Because when you're in your teams, some teams don't have other apprentices. So I was the only apprentice in my first team, and it was a little bit difficult to adjust because everybody was kind of already on their game, already doing, things. And even though the support was there, it would have been even better if I was maybe in the office a lot more. So I only went into the office once a week. And I would see a few people here and there, but it's the youth committee makes sure that the integration and people coming together, the youth coming together as one youth, we call ourselves one youth, coming together and just sort of integrating into the world of work. So there's plenty of opportunities to adjust to that socially and
Amazing.
work.
And how did you kind of find that transition going into a professional working environment such as a big corporate like Vodafone? Was it quite daunting, or how did you kind of adjust to that?
It was very daunting. I think once you're in something, baby steps. I never put pressure on myself to know everything and understand everything about the business. I made sure that I put into my mind, I'm an overthinker by nature. So I made sure that I told myself daily, no one expects you to know everything. Take it one step at a time, one day at a time. I think COVID taught us to take everything one day at a time. That's all we had the next day. So I've adjusted myself to one day at a time. Today might be difficult, tomorrow might be difficult. I was in loads of meetings where I think I want to say this is a Vodafone thing, but I think this is the whole like corporate world thing. Acronyms are everywhere. So I would sit in a meeting and people are just speaking. It's like a different language. That's one thing that I kind of struggled with, because now even switching teams, it's new acronyms. And you're just like, okay, what does that mean? What does that mean? But making sure that I was aware that I had to take it one day at a time um, helped me a lot. I think also having worked in different organizations, working in the NHS was also really difficult as well. I worked in a huge hotel in Wembley, and that was it's always difficult to start, but taking it one step at a time and making sure you know that.
And this is going to lead kind of into my next question for you, Mercy, in terms of looking ahead and looking at the future. Have you kind of built a plan for yourself, or do you? Yeah.
Yeah. I think I've had the same plan since I was 18.
Okay.
When I was 18, I was doing one of my A levels was applied ICT, and we took a trip to Accenture, and that was the most life-changing field trip of my life. And I just knew being in Accenture and the things that we did that day, it was a lot of presenting, innovative or innovation, and then presenting our innovations to the rest of our class. And I don't know, there was just something about being there that made me feel like I want to be in this place. I want to help. I love helping people. That's something that's huge to me. And I've always wanted a job that can help people. And I think that's kind of also what drew me to data analytics, because data helps people make better decisions. Data helps businesses make better decisions. So I've always wanted to be a management consultant. So when we talk about maybe 5 years from now, my goal is to be in that role as a consultant, a management consultant, work within helping people, helping businesses. I also am an African in the diaspora, and I would love to go back to my home country, which is Uganda, and start working in Uganda. whenever I go to Uganda, I've noticed one thing I've noticed is that the customer service isn't great. And I would love to be able to maybe start a consultancy or start a company that helps, develop the customer service within our country and change the customer service and how people are served. I mean, the only time I had like excellent customer service was when I was in a five-star hotel or a four-star restaurant or five-star restaurant or whatever. So I want to be able to help the people that are, you know, within the like beyond a bit lower than, 4 and 5 star, to make sure that the customer service is great wherever, in a supermarket, on the road, wherever it is. And it's a huge task changing people's mindsets, which is why I kind of I'm interested in change management and helping people adopt change and embrace change rather than be resistant to it. So that's kind of where I see myself in the next 5 years.
That last point there, in terms of embrace change, I'm keen to get your advice on people that are maybe looking similar to yourself to take on an apprenticeship. Maybe we talk so much about early careers, we talk so much about apprenticeships at 16, 18, 20, but what about those people that are maybe 25, 30, 35? I think it's becoming more and more common, but what would your kind of advice be to people that are maybe looking at an apprenticeship and going, oh, I'm a bit too late for that, or like I don't I don't want to step out my comfort zone. I know what I know and that's it. Have you got any advice to them sorts of people?
I think the best advice is to understand that change is the only constant thing. Whatever it is that you're in, it's constantly going to change. So being able and willing to adapt to change and not being so rigid will ultimately help you more than staying and being comfortable. I thought that I was too old to apply for an apprenticeship when I was 25. And it was difficult adjusting because I'm like, all these people are younger, smarter, and they've been doing computer science since year 7, and they already know how to use Python, and I don't even know how to open Python or what that even means. And Python is a snake, and I don't know what C#. I can sing in C#, but I don't know how to code in C#. And I'm just like, this is a lot. But one thing that I've always, I think this is a personal thing as well. I learned quite early on that change is the only constant thing. Um, in my personal life, I go from having long hair to shaving my head, like every other year, and seeing my hair grow. And, I've got younger siblings and I've seen them grow, and I've practically raised my youngest brother. And it's just been like constant change that I've come to a point and I've come to realize that in this life, if I stay in my comfort zone, I'm only doing myself a disservice because I'm not growing. The world is constantly moving, the world is constantly changing. What I knew in 2015 is so different to what I know now, and the internet, and Meta's releasing threads, and Twitter's doing this and that and the other. And I'm just like, there's so much happening. But if you ultimately, it starts within. If you tell,
Embrace it, right?
yeah, embrace the change rather than fight it. I grew up in an African household where change is like, we did things this way, my parents did this, you're going to do this. And I was like, listen, at this point, I thank God that my parents embraced the change, because if they didn't, it would have been absolute hell. And we've got so many people that are still in that mindset that, no, this is how things are done, and we've been doing this for years and it's working. If it's not broken, why fix it? Maybe you just need a little jiggle, just change it a little bit, try it this way. You never know, you might enjoy it. So it starts within, and just knowing that the world is constantly changing. You can never run away from change, no matter what you do. You can
Absolutely love that. So to finish up then, what advice would you give to someone maybe that was in your position a couple of years ago, or whether that's someone in your position now or even your younger self? What advice would you give, knowing what you know now, to take those steps, embrace change? What would you say to people?
Oh, that's such a huge question. I think to my younger self, I would tell her um, to go with the waves that come with life. Don't fight it. Embrace the change, like we've said, um, but don't be so rigid. And even if you've planned this way of going, but another opportunity comes along, You never know, that might be the acceleration that takes you to the very thing that you always wanted. Or you never know, it might lead you to something better. So always be open to the waves, the ebbs and the flows of life. Don't fight it, and don't feel like because I've planned to be a, project manager for my whole life, that's all I'm going to do. And don't put yourself in a box, because then you're just restricted. Because if you don't fit, if you don't get to that place, you won't feel. Then you feel like you haven't fulfilled purpose, or whatever it is, or your dreams or your vision. So don't be afraid to change the dream as you go along. Don't be afraid to change the plan as you go along. Make changes to it. You wanted to be this at 25. I wanted to be married at 25. I'm still single at 26, going on 27. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's little things, and don't be afraid to change the plan as you go along. It's not written, set in stone yet. So go with the waves of life.
Love that. And that's a great ending to the podcast. So, Mercy, thank you so much for joining today. You've been a fantastic guest. And yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so happy to have been here.
Thanks for tuning in. Be sure to check out each episode on your chosen streaming platform and head over to the Not Going to Uni website to start your future career.